When we were young, we read more often because we had to. It was the only way for us to get knowledge and to be enlightened. Read to your heart's delight and be enlightened. Let's just read. It's a podcast by Andy's Personal Development. Stay tuned for more reading and enlightenment. Hey, and welcome to this edition of Let's Just Read, the podcast that brings you information and enlightenment from artists, writers, and authors all around the globe. We say to you, read for enlightenment, for knowledge, and for information. Our guest today is Brian Brady, and he is a man who's been famous for the Golden Gate Tales. He was born and raised in the vibrant heart of San Francisco, and he found endless inspiration in the city, celebrated for its stunning architecture, dynamic sports teams, rich traditions, and colorful characters. His journey began as a police officer, later transitioned into a corporate security executive, and this path led him through diverse landscapes from Berkeley's electric streets to the scenic vistas of Farmington, New Mexico, and eventually back to the Bay Area. So I will let him tell us a whole lot more about himself as we introduce our guest. This episode entitled Brian Brady Golden Gate Tales. So let's welcome our guest live on Let's Just Read, Brian Brady. Hi, Brian. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be on the show with you.
Hey, nice to see you and nice to be with you. So let's begin by asking you about your story, your life, and tell us in a nutshell, basically,
I'm
how
losing
you.
your audio.
You're losing my audio? You getting
Can
me
you hear
now?
me?
I'm hearing you. Can you hear me? Oh, technology.
It's gone.
Brian is there somewhere. I know he is. I just heard his voice. Can you hear me, Brian? Wow.
It's totally gone.
Wow. Bring your camera back up. Your audio is good. I can hear you.
Okay, I'm working on
But just need to bring your video back on.
where it is.
Look for the little icon that resembles a camera. And that should get you back on screen.
Not yet.
Not yet. Wow. Okay.
Don't know what happened.
We probably can continue the interview until that probably will work itself out or sort itself out.
Okay.
Yeah. So tell us a bit about yourself, your story, your lifestyle, and how you eventually got into writing.
Sure. I was born and raised in San Francisco, and I started my career in police work in Berkeley. I spent 9 years there. Then I moved down to East LA and worked 2 years there, and then moved again to New Mexico. I worked there for 4 years, and then came back to the Bay Area and continued working in law enforcement in the city of Nevada, which is about 30 miles north of San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And I retired there as the police chief and moved to Los Angeles for 10 years and was the head of corporate security for NBC Universal in Los Angeles. Then came back to the Bay Area and spent a year working with the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, putting the security systems in for the new museum.
Mm-hmm.
When I retired from that, I had been told by people when I would talk to them about places I'd worked and people I'd met, that I should write it down. So I decided to go ahead and do so. I took little snippets of uh, issues and incidents that occurred in my career and created characters that are composites of people that I met over that period of time. And then took some cases that I had worked on and other people had worked on and began to build a fictional story using these characters and incidents as the basis for it.
Yeah, great. And so your debut novel was Oh, What a Tangled Web.
Correct.
Right. Tell us a bit
And
about that.
that book was about San Francisco and a serial killer who was preying on individuals who were involved in the rather seedy side of the sex business in the city, and some human trafficking, uh, the organized crime, all of that. That who is killing these women who basically go unnoticed and that they're not missed. So uh, the story is brought to the police attention by a couple who finds some incriminating evidence in a storage
Hmm.
locker.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the police begin the investigation, which takes them around the Bay Area and then ultimately to the suspect.
Okay, great. Sounds really fascinating there, Brian. What would you say was a style that prompted you to start writing, or did you follow any other famous author or writers and decided you're going to follow in their footsteps, or was something about their style of writing that impressed you so much that you decided
I don't
you
know.
needed to go along that line as well? You heard the question, Brian? Oh, I lost him. He's gone. Wow. So I'm going to stop sharing, and we're supposed to be having live here on Let's Just Read. Okay, so Brian is back. Let me
That
see if I
dropped
can
off.
get him up on the screen. Okay, so I got him back on the screen. All right, Brian, what I was asking you about was the style of writing that you began with regards to the first novel. Was that also inspired by someone that you admired as an author?
Uh, I think yes is the short answer. I like Michael Conley.
Ah,
I think Michael, he's done a great job of creating really great characters. Harry Bosch is a great character. Mickey Haller is a great character, and he hooks you with these wonderful characters. And the fact that he was a crime reporter also gives him credibility. So when he writes about criminal activity, he writes from experience. So I think I was able to hopefully create characters that are interesting and at the same time have credibility because I have worked in the field.
yeah, great. And that takes us directly to your second novel. Tell us a bit about that.
The second story is about a young girl who's kidnapped and sexually assaulted and murdered again in San Francisco. And it deals with a serial killer. Serial killers are uh, always interesting to a reading audience. People seem to be fascinated with them. And this individual has kind of flown under the radar for law enforcement purposes because a piece of evidence that could tie him is currently sitting in an evidence locker somewhere else. And ultimately, the story evolves to where that piece of evidence is discovered and the suspect is discovered. But again, the same characters, hopefully, that people liked in the first novel, are in the second.
Okay, so I'm just going to show on the screen here Hiding in Plain Sight. Or what prompted you to choose that as the cover for this publication?
The cover is the Legion of Honor in San Francisco, which is a famous museum,
Yeah.
and it's located right next to the Lincoln Park Golf Course in San Francisco. So, as a young person, I had played golf on that course, so I kind of knew that. And my wife is an art major, and so she knew the museum. So it was kind of a logical intersection to have the body discovered on the golf course next to the museum.
Yeah, fascinating indeed. Thank you for sharing. Are there any other works in the making with regards to publications? You're looking forward to anything in the future?
The first book, Over the Tangled Web, is going to be republished in September.
Uh
There
huh.
was a problem with a previous publisher, so I'm going with the same publisher that did Hiding in Plain Sight. And there's a third book, same characters, that is just about finished. It's an edit right now, and I have to title it and have the edit completed, and then that one, hopefully, by year's end.
Right. Wonderful. So tell us, with regards to your writing and let's say book talks, have you had the opportunity to publicly share your stories with any live audiences and get a feedback as to what they thought about your experience and how you managed to do the research to get the books out?
I've done a couple of interviews and podcasts, and the feedback from the people on the podcast has been positive. Uh, not not necessarily specifically that they like the style, but they like the book,
Hmm.
and most importantly for me, they like the characters.
Yeah.
It's a really it's character driven that you have to have. Um, you want to connect with the characters. I think you have to find something that you like about them, and I think that keeps you reading.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing, Brian. So, with regards to the philosophy that drives your life, the thought process, is it a Gandhi based something, Martin Luther King Jr., or Socrates or Plato? What's your philosophy based, Brian?
I that's that you're setting the bar awful high. Uh, I, the I think I'd like to portray after all my time in police work philosophically to portray the characters again, getting back to that, as human and real
Uh
and
huh.
um, flawed, not
Yeah.
perfect,
Yeah.
but doing their best. That they're they have a human side to them. They have a personal side to them. They have up days, down days. They hurt. They're happy. They're sad. And to be able to convey that in writing, so people can connect with it and look for that human connectivity.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for sharing, Brian. Have you been approached or have you thought about doing any of your publications in a mini TV series or even a movie per se?
I have not been approached, but if anyone's listening and they have an idea, I'm all ears. Uh, you know, I mentioned Michael Conley, and he has transitioned Harry Bosch
Yeah.
into seasons,
Yeah.
and it's great. It's funny. Characters in your mind's eye, you have a character, and after reading Harry Bosch, I had a vision of Harry Bosch, and the character, Mr. Wellinger, who plays Harry Bosch, wasn't what I had in mind. And so when I
Ah,
first saw it on television, I wasn't sure, but now he's Harry Bosch. I mean, it's perfect.
right.
So
Wonderful. Yeah.
yeah, but again, I'd love to do that. I think that would be, and I think it would be fun. I think it would make for a good, like a Netflix or HBO series. I think it would work well.
Right. And if you were approached and you had the opportunity and the deal was all signed and stuff, which one would you do first?
I do owe it a Tangled Web because I think it
Hmm.
it sets the tone for the characters. They can stand alone. The books can stand alone. That's okay. But if you read them in sequence, they build on one another, and the characters build on one another.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. Brian, if you had to advise any young upcoming writer how they should approach the idea of publication and editing, what advice would you give to them?
Um, Probably twofold. One on publishing, try and find a reputable publishing house.
Yeah.
If you go online, you can find 100. people that for 29.95 will get your book published and market it, etc.
Yeah.
And you're wasting your money. They're going to take your money, and nothing's going to happen. Uh, you want to go with a reputable publishing house that will sign a contract with you that tells you specifically what they're going to do. And I'll use Palmetto, who I'm using right now, and I have that. I have a contract. I have milestones. I have things that they say they will do, and they have. So that's huge, and I think that saves you a ton of money in the long run. Editing, I think for me, I searched around. I had different people edit until you find someone who either likes your writing style, understands it, and feels that they can help you along the way by contributing. You can't have a thin skin. You submit 25 pages of what you think are Hemingway to an editor, and he sends you back 26 pages of corrections. That's a little bit frustrating, but at the same time, it makes you a better writer. Uh,
Right.
those editors are giving you, and there's different editors. Obviously, there's line editors. There's people that are doing proofreading. There are people doing, and you find the people you can feel comfortable with. That's huge. Be comfortable, and that understands what you're trying to say and your style, and contributes. Because quite frankly, they make your book better.
Yeah. 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 Makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing. So you have a couple other writers that you kind of book your style from. We have Lee Child and Sheldon Siegel. Are there anyone
Uh,
else that comes into the picture? Of course, Michael Connolly is number one. Then there's Lee Child and Sheldon Siegel. Anyone else comes into the picture?
a fellow by the name of Joseph Wamba. Now, this
Ah.
going back a few years, he's a former LA police detective who wrote a series of books, fiction and nonfiction, and then
Mm-hmm.
had a number of them turned into movies and TV. He was a very fine writer. His writing style was excellent. He was a great descriptive writer.
Yeah.
He could describe a character, and you could walk down the street in New York City and spot that person. It was so
Ah.
vivid. And he was also not only a police officer; he also had a degree, I believe, in literature. So he was well schooled. But again, early on, I liked his work, and I loved his descriptive writing.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Brian. Wonderful. What do you do in your pastime? What are some of the things that you do on your downtime to just relax and be ordinary, be human?
I don't know how human I would be. I'm trying to play golf, and uh, that has to be one of the most frustrating sports in the world. Uh, and you would think hitting a ball that is sitting perfectly still would be relatively easy, and it's proving to be elusive, to say the least. Uh, but and on top of that, my wife and I bought a little piece of property, a little condo up on the Russian River in Sonoma County, and
Hmm.
we've been working on that for about the last year, getting it to where we want it. So between that and trying to play golf and trying to write, that's full time.
Yeah, I get it. Now, here's the thing about your style of writing. It has plots and scenes that takes you from one place to the next and leaves some level of space for the imagination of the reader. And I just want to share something here from Oh What a Tangled Web. It says a young woman participates in a stage photo shoot in the basement of a rustic cabin deep in the Sonoma County mountains. She's a long way from San Francisco, but this isn't her first venture into the world of Photoshop S&M pictures. Her boss, Ivan, reassures her after all the money is good, so she goes along with it. As the evening progresses, the mystery man begins to stretch beyond the world of make believe, inflicting real pain. She tells him to stop, then she begs. She looks to Ivan for help. I'm going to leave it there in a suspense moment. I like how you drive the plot from one place to the next, and you're keeping it kind of real so that people could realize or recognize, hey, this could actually have happened to me or somebody else by that name. What drives you to bring out that connection from plot to plot in such vivid scenes, and it sounds so real, Brian?
Well, it is. I mean, that does happen.
Yes.
And what you want the reader, you said you want to set the scene,
Yeah.
and the rustic cabin, it's in the mountains. You begin to sense this young woman's sense now of isolation. Ivan is her lifeline,
Ah,
and she turns. Things are not going the way they were planned. She's in trouble. She's scared, and you want the reader to feel that oh, this sense of panic, and turning to Ivan, and Ivan's not going to help her, and now she's totally alone, without help, desperate, and things only go downhill from there.
yeah. And based on your writing style and the people that you like Michael Connelly and company, what do you think is one of the main attraction for connecting with people so that the plot so resonates with them, they pick up the book and they just don't want to put it down?
What I said this before. I said what I really want is someone who picks the book up. I want them to read it slowly because they don't want it
Ah,
to end, you know.
yeah,
And I have actually had that experience with authors that where you're reading the book and you go, God, I'm on page 200 of 300, and I don't want this last hundred to go by. I'll put it. I'll even put it down for a day and then
right.
come back to it. I'd love people to be able to do that, and I think the key is that they see something of themselves in the characters, that the character resonates with them, whether it's something they do well or something they don't do so well. That there's a connection, and with that connectivity, that keeps the reader reading.
Right. I get it. And I love it. And you do it really quite well.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome, Brian. You're welcome.
And I'm
What's your
lucky. I
uh
have San Francisco as a backdrop to write. That
yeah.
there's. I mean, yeah. It doesn't get any better. If you're going to do some descriptive writing, it's a great city to do that.
And I love the fact that you use one of the most famous um, landscaping landmines, or however you want to describe it, the Golden Gate Tales,
Yeah.
after the name Brian Brady. So yeah, it encapsulates everything. Now, in terms of your basic philosophy, what's your message for the world, not just from your writing style, but for life as a whole?
Hmm. I'd like to see people a little more tolerant. I liked personally, from my perspective, I think we've gotten into a situation where there's far too much name calling and personal attacks. I'd like to see a situation where people can disagree, but disagree courteously, disagree with some tact and diplomacy, where I might not like your politics or your candidate or your lifestyle, but I don't hate you. I think people are sadly personalizing lifestyle, politics, religion, and taking it out on individuals as opposed to removing the object of discussion from the personality.
Yeah, yeah, we could have so many different things that we disagree on, but the basic human concept of accepting everybody just for who they are is really important. That's a wonderful philosophy and something that we need so much more in the world today. What are your likes with regards to sporting activities? Are you involved in the NFL, the NHL, the NBA,
Well, being in the Bay Area,
the
you're
49ers?
49ers, the Giants, the
Uh-huh.
Warriors, the
Yeah.
Sharks. I mean, we have it all. We're very fortunate. I've been a lifelong Giant fan. I've had season tickets with the Giants. I currently do not have season ticket with the Giants because I'm upset with the general manager.
Oh my.
And I email him daily, telling him what a disaster he is. But
Wow.
he doesn't write back. Anyway, and then you have the Warriors, and we got Steph Curry, and he's such a joy to watch as a
Yes.
player and as a human being. He's an absolute gentleman. He and his wife do great things in the Bay Area, charity wise. He's just a really class act. And the 49ers, we'll see. They've been a great story with Brock Purdy, this guy that comes out of nowhere and leads them to the
Hmm.
Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So yeah, we I definitely enjoy sports, and but the Giants are probably the one I'm closest to.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. When you look back in retrospect at some of the things that you have done with your life and including the writing, is there anything you would have changed, or would you have done it the same way as you have done?
You know, that's another good question, and probably uh, I think I would have been a little more, maybe a lot more uh, considerate of family.
Hmm.
I moved, as you can tell, I moved from Berkeley to LA to New Mexico,
Yeah.
back to the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And each of those moves are a big move on your family. And sometimes uh, an opportunity presented itself, and I went after it, maybe without looking at the consequence or the stretch it put on the family and how it affected them. They went along with it, but I
Yeah.
think it would have been much better had I involved them throughout the process. I think I was a little selfish on that.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, there are always moments in life that we can reflect on and see the two sides, if there are two, and understand how much we can learn from the reflection. So I credit you with that kind of mindset, and I'm sure it helps you with your character as far as Brian Brady is concerned. So you have a famous last name. What are your impressions of
I don't like it.
arguably the most famous and successful quarterback of all times?
Joe Montana.
Ah, wow.
Joe Montana.
Okay. I'm not going to argue with that.
the
I
no,
understand.
Tom Brady's a great quarterback, and he's from the Bay
Hmm.
Area. He grew up
Yeah.
in San Mateo,
Yeah.
and I think that he's immensely talented
Yeah.
and fun to watch. Uh, I thought he was, again, personal. I thought he was a little bit of a crybaby. If somebody hit him or got close to him, he was the first one to go to the referee.
Yeah.
So, but you can't deny the man's talent. He is an
Yeah.
immensely talented player.
Yeah. And his record, of course. Wow.
Oh yeah, no, it
Amazing.
speaks for itself.
Yeah. Wonderful. So, Brian, I'm going to give you the opportunity and let me see if I can get some stuff on top there. Tell people how they can make contact with you if they need to, for a book talk, or how they can get your books, your publications.
Well, the books are on Amazon and Kindle and Barnes and Noble, uh, online, and that you can get them that way. As I said, Oh, What a Tangled Web will republish, I think, on September 10th, and it's still available, but it'll be under Palmetto. And the website, goldengatetales.com. You've got it up there. If somebody wants to communicate with me, I'll make every effort to get right back to them and answer if they have an inquiry.
All right. So we had an audience of two I saw online, but no questions or comments thus far. We just have about 1 minute to go. Here's the question, Brian. If you had a megaphone and you had the opportunity to speak to almost 8 billion people in the world, roughly the world population, something that you want them to remember and never forget, because it's just your one chance, what would you say to them, Brian?
What we said just a minute ago about being tolerant of one another,
Yeah.
that recognizing that 8 billion people are going to have 8 billion different opinions,
Uh huh.
and that the opinions are just that, they're opinions. They're not who the person is.
Uh huh.
So, appreciate the person for who they are, respect them for who they are, and respect their opinion. Disagree with them,
Yeah.
disagree, loudly, if that's
Yeah.
the case, but don't attack the person.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. And that's a very healthy disposition that we need to take cognizant of and recognize that everybody is important, everybody matters, and everybody has a story that needs to be told and that needs to be heard. So we have been in the presence of Brian Brady, Golden Gate Tales. Get his books on Amazon and all the other famous and popular stores out there where you can purchase his publication. Reach out to him. His information is on the screen there. And we thank him so much for spending the past 30 minutes or so with us with regards to his work, his life, his philosophy, his belief, and the things that he holds as valuable. Until next time, this is Andy of Andy's Personal Development on Let's Just Read together with my guest, Brian Brady, saying so long, Godspeed, God bless, Namaste, Shalom. Bye for now.
Bye, Andy.